Hi everyone, it's Erin from the Provincial Farmhouse. Today I'm doing a video for the Paint Couture creative team. I'm going to be creating a spring wall decor piece. For my project today, I'm going to be using this MDF blank that I cut myself, and I'm going to begin by using Paint Couture's 2-in-1 primer in white. I'm going to lay down one coat on my surface. I'm going to give it about an hour to dry, and then I'll come in with my second coat, just making sure that that's nice and even. This is going to prepare my surface for paint, and then I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to paint the other side as well to make sure I don't get any warping. Once that's dry, I'm going to be using Paint Couture's Italian Ivory mineral paint. This has a built-in sealer, so that is going to save me a step. I'm going to lay down one even coat, and then once that's dry, I will come in with a second coat. There's really good coverage with this particular color. I'm then going to be using IOD's new Catherina transfer. There is a little bird pair here that I definitely want to use, so I'm going to be trimming that out first. I think that'll make a really great centerpiece for my project today. And then I do want to add some florals behind it. So I looked for some flowers that were similar to the ones that are already with those little birds. And then I'm going to peel the backing off the flowers first because I want this to be in the background, so it's the first thing I have to put down. So I'm just positioning that just off center, and I'm going to start rubbing and burnishing that down. I have to keep in mind where the birds are going to go. So if you're going to give this a try, definitely think about how you want your end product to go. So just lifting that transfer up as I am rubbing, and then I'm going to position the little birds and layer them over the top of the florals. And I think that these definitely go beautifully together. Once I have that positioned, I'm going to rub over the entire transfer, and just like before, I'm going to pick up one side or a corner of that plastic, and then I'm going to start lifting that as I'm rubbing. This helps the transfer to release. If I miss any of those sections, I can just put it back down and continue rubbing. Next, I took out Paint Couture's Embossing Medium. I'm going to be using it with this scroll stencil that I had in my stash. It's probably one you can still get on Amazon. And I'm going to be using a palette knife to start spreading that embossing medium over the scroll detail. Now, I'm only going over the top of the scroll elements there. I'm leaving out that crown, and I'm only going about halfway because this stencil design isn't quite the right shape for my project. So I'm going to be using bits and pieces of it and piecing the design together so that it works for my particular project. When I'm finished with that, I will lift that up. Now, I made sure that that product was dry. I flipped the stencil around. So I'm basically taking that top section that I've already used, and I am positioning it down at the bottom to continue that scroll design. And I'm just repeating the same process as before, pulling that embossing medium over the top of the stencil. You definitely don't want to get too much of that product on there because you can get a little bit of that sort of bleeding underneath the stencil, but I found it was pretty easy to come in with a wet wipe and remove any of the excess that I didn't want. I let the embossing medium dry completely, and then I came in with Paint Couture's Extreme Guard in satin to seal my transfer. This is probably something I should have done before the embossing medium, but I was just so excited to get in and do that raised stencil. But there's no harm. I'm able to come in now and layer in that clear coat to protect my transfer, as I'm going to be layering in some other products. When that was dry, I took out Paint Couture's Crackle Step 1. I'm going to apply an even coat over the entire surface there, and I'm just brushing that on. You can also dab it on. The thicker you put it on, the bigger the cracks. I don't want the cracks on my project to be too big, so I'm just brushing it on just in a simple brushing movement. I'm then going to let this dry completely, and it will feel tacky and sticky to the touch when it's ready for Crackle Step 2, which I'm coming in with now. I'm just applying it in the same way, in the same places that I applied Crackle Step 1, and then I'm going to let this dry completely. Next, I took out Paint Couture's Light Brown Sugar Antiquing Glaze, and I'm going to begin applying it in sections. I'm working it into the cracks, and I also really love how it's capturing the details of that raised stencil. And then I'm using a wet wipe to wipe back and dab back that excess. So this is going to allow that glaze to sit down in the cracks. It's going to lighten up the dark tone of the embossing medium, but as I'm wiping it back, I'm also liking how it's pulling it away from the raised stencil that we did with the embossing medium, and it's sort of highlighting that again. It's not going to disappear into the background. I'm just going to continue to apply that glaze over the entire project. You'll notice that I'm not really focusing on the center. I'm really only pulling that glaze into the center with the wet wipe. When the glaze was dry, I took out Paint Couture's Aged Bronze Metallic Stencil Paste, and I'm just using this other stencil that I had, and I am going to just be going over the top of the words Petite Paris and that little address or year that's underneath it. I always like to have a little bit of typography, and I'm just applying the stencil paste in the exact same way that I applied the embossing medium, just using that palette knife there to run over the top of the stencil, not using too much of that product. And then once I'm happy with that, I'll gently pull it away. I made sure that that text was dry, and then I came in and added this little fleur-de-lis design that was part of the same stencil. I'm going to apply one of those down the bottom, then I'm going to turn the stencil around, and I'm going to place another one of those fleur-de-lis up the top there. I'm then going to reposition the stencil because I really quite like this little crown. I think that will look really nice just above the birds. So I'm going to add some of that aged bronze stencil paste over the top of that and then pull that away. I got a little bit where I didn't want it, so I'm going to take a wet wipe and gently wipe that back until I'm happy with how that looks. Next, I'm going to get some more of that aged bronze on a sponge there, and I'm just dabbing that around the edge. So I want to bring in some more of that aged bronze and have it sort of frame out the piece. I am just dabbing that on. I really like the effect that using a sponge gives. If I get it anywhere that I don't want it to be, I can just use my finger or a wet wipe to pull that back. But I really do want a little bit more of that darkness to sort of tie those stenciled designs in with the rest of the piece. So I'm just going to continue to work my way around the project until I'm happy with how that looks. After wiping back any areas that looked a little bit untidy with a wet wipe, I then took out Paint Couture's Bronze Luxe Metallic, and I'm going to be using the sponge with that as well and going back over those same areas. So I'm still going to have the darker aged bronze tone, but layering this over the top, it's just going to give that nice little variation of color. This is a little bit brighter, so it's going to brighten the piece up a little bit more. And I'm just going to continue to work my way around and add that beautiful bronze luxe metallic around the edge. I then used a fan brush, dipped it in the bronze, and I'm going to go in and start splattering some of that bronze over the top of my project so that we've got some lovely little metallic speckles on the project. I just think this is a nice final touch. If I inspire you to try any of the Paint Couture products used in today's video, I would really appreciate it if you would use my affiliate link. You will find it in the description below. Finally, I'm going to attach some gold ribbon to the back of my project for hanging. And here's a look at our finished spring wall decor. I think this turned out really sweet, and I love the combination of the IOD transfers with those raised stencils. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure you hit that like button, comment, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any of the videos from the Paint Couture creative team. Thanks for watching.